3, 2, 1.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bucket List. We've been having a good time. Wish you could have been here. I talked about my old broadcast days in Wichita, Kansas, out there in the hometown of Dr. James R. Whining, president of Acts Ministry and Acts Media Group. And Nancy got tickled and was slapping the table over there and saying stuff, and finally got her quieted down enough for us to go on the air. I am Paul, and this is Nancy across the table from me.
I thought I was Paul.
No, I'm Paul. You're Nancy. And our last name is Collins, Collins. How about that? I want to help people who have difficulty with my pronunciation. Do you know, Nancy, there are people who say pronunciation because it's spelled that way, but it's not. It's spelled pronunciation, but it's pronounced pronunciation.
That's how you pronounce it?
That's how you nunce it. I used to do radio nuncing too.
Radio nuncing?
Mm-hmm. And I did nuncing on football games and basketball games.
Nuncer.
Yeah, I did all kinds of play-by-play nuncing. Well, here we are with the bucket list. We'll get around to it. Hello to all of our friends way out there in Netherlands, wherever you are. St. Joe, Texas, Northeast Missouri, Northwest Missouri, and overseas, and all the ships at sea. Remember, you wouldn't remember him. H.V. Kaltenborn was one of the first newscasters on radio, and he used to come on the air and say, "This is H.V. Kaltenborn with all the news for all of you and all the ships at sea."
I remember that.
Oh, okay.
Were you talking about
Well,
it?
you heard me talk about it, yes. Anyway, the bucket list, what we deal with is the bottom of your bucket. Whatever you put down there at the bottom and you haven't brought it up to deal with it.
We're not talking about chamber mugs or thunder mugs or...
No, not that kind of bucket. No, not really. Some folks in our audience are so young, they don't know what those are, Nancy. And we're not going to explain it.
Oh, okay.
Not on the air. They can contact us through axmediagroup.com. www.axmediagroup.com. We didn't come here to entertain you, by the way. We came here to inform you about your bucket list, and that there are folks who have a list, and at the bottom of their bucket list could be found the most important things to consider. We are looking at an audience that's very diverse. First of all, those who are retired, those who are nearing retirement, those who ought to be planning for retirement, and the relatives of those who ought to be planning for retirement or are nearing retirement or are retired. After all, the retired population of the United States of America is very large and growing exponentially. Do you know what exponentially means? I'll tell you. For instance, 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 plus 2 is 2.
Huh? 2 plus 2?
2 plus 2 is 4. And I was thinking ahead of my mouth. And 2 times 2 is 4. That's the same. Mm-hmm. 3 plus 3 is 6, but 3 times 3 is 9. That's exponential multiplication right there. And the number of senior citizens in the United States is multiplying exponentially because we have good medical care. Believe it or not, folks complain about it. They want to go to Mexico to get medical care. They want to go to Canada. You're going to the wrong places. Best medical care in the world is right here in the good old US of A. And you may not like everything about it, but it is the best. And it's one of the reasons why Americans are living as long as they live. Now, there are other countries, I know, statistically, who have people whose the average lifespan is longer than those of us in the United States. However, in the United States, our senior citizen population is multiplying because we have good medical care and we have conveniences that help people live better quality lives as they age and their bodies don't respond as they used to. Now, Nancy, you worked in geriatrics a long time as a nurse, 32 years, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw at the beginning, I'm sure, people who were physically challenged and mentally challenged, had great health challenges, probably a little younger than they were at the close of your career after 30 some years. In other words, what I'm saying is the population of those receiving geriatric care had become older than it was 30 years ago. Now it's been over 40 years ago because you've been retired.
10.
Soon be 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, what we've talked about on this broadcast from time to time now as the bucket list, we've talked about the history of the Department of Revenue, the United States of America, the Internal Revenue Service Department. We've talked about the history of the Internal Revenue Service. We've talked about the history of the federal income tax. We've talked about Social Security. We've talked about Medicare. And now we've also overlapped and talked about the things that I was told as we are Christian. We tell you that up front. However, our point of view is through the eyes of a Christian point of view as followers of Jesus. Some of you are secularists, humanists. That's fine. Some things are classic, and what I'm about to tell you is classic. It isn't the exclusive property of Christians. I was told that I would be taught how to save. And one of the ways I was taught was I remembered what I had done many years before, living in the capital city of Missouri, how I kept track of everything that I'd spent for a month. Every penny, I labeled it, what it was for, when I spent it. I was able to extrapolate out and take a look at exactly where my money was going. I had not done that for years and years and years until the early 1990s when I was told, spoken to by the Holy Spirit that he would teach me how to save. I immediately knew that there was a way to save money. Then he said, I will teach you how to invest. Then I'll teach you how to save, or how to spend, rather. Then I'll teach you how to get. So it was these 4 steps. He would teach me how to save. That was number 1. How to invest. That was number 2. How to spend. That was number 3. How to get was number 4. When I told you about this, Nancy, you said, that's interesting. That's just the opposite of what the secular world teaches. Just the opposite of what economists and others would say, and what our society was saying. Our society was saying, get all you can, and then spend it, spend what you want to spend, and then if you have a little bit left, you can invest it, and if there's anything left from that, you can think about saving.
You know, that's so dumb, though, if people think about it.
It never worked.
No.
Never worked. We know any number of people who don't have a money problem, they have a spending problem. And unless they solve their spending problem, they'll never be prepared to retire, what we would say, retire gracefully and comfortably. 2 of them that we know, one has been a worker, factory worker his entire life, has always made more money than we've made. And the other one was a professional man. He had a spending problem. He and his wife, when he was in his professional practice, when he left that practice, continued with a spending problem. And today they are basically living hand to mouth. So, folks, this is a serious issue. To prepare for retirement, or if you have members of your family in your circle of relatives that you know need to be preparing for retirement, you need to hear what we're going to tell you. The first step is learn how to save.
I know, but see, that needs to start fiddlesticks in your 20s. I'm a big deal looking at myself of starting early, and I didn't know things, and I had good parents that knew how to do things like that. But
See, you have to be taught, but to be taught, you have to be teachable.
yeah,
And sorry to say, we have a lot of young people who don't want to be taught how to save. Now, we know one young man who happens to be a member of our family with a high school diploma. He has stayed single. He's still a young man in his 20s. He drives a delivery truck, lives alone. He's a saver. He's a minimalist. They tell me his apartment is furnished in a minimal fashion. He likes things simple and uncomplicated, and he's already saved $10,000. I applaud him. I offer kudos galore because there aren't very many young people who are in that position. In fact, I've given this statistic back in the days when we had the happy hour broadcast, and I've given it on this bucket list broadcast, that in 2018, now it's 3 years ago, so these statistics today would be more stark than this. But in 2018, 57% of the adults in the United States could not write a check for $1,000. 57%. That's probably 67, 70% today cannot write a check for $1,000. 44% could not write a check for $400. That figure is probably more like 60% today that can't write a check for $400. So obviously, people have a spending problem more than a money problem. So they need to learn how to save, but you have to be teachable. Nancy, there are lots of gadgets and gizmos out there. We've been helping someone go through their personal belongings as they're preparing to downsize and really go into full-fledged retirement. And I was amazed at how many cords they had to connect to these cell phones and laptops and iPads and cords for this, cords for that, all kinds of chargers, all kinds of other gadgets. I mean, literally, folks, suitcases full of gadgets. Every gadget costs money. Now, there are ways to save. If you're a gadget person, be satisfied. Learn to be satisfied. If you could master everything that can be done on one cell phone, that's quite a bit. You don't need all these other gadgets. But take a look at your grocery bill. Save the receipts. And at the end of a month, take a look at exactly what you spent in the supermarket and what you spent it on. I guarantee you're going to find some things on that list that you could have done without very nicely. You bought things in the supermarket that you did not need for nutrition or for cleaning or for personal comfort, personal hygiene. You bought some stuff just because at the moment it sounded good. And whatever it is may have been in a can or in a cardboard box and still on your pantry shelf. And then you forget it's there, and next time you're in the supermarket, you go through and you see something that captures your eye, and you get it, and it goes on the pantry shelf. There's a reason why periodically the postman for the United States Postal Service, they have a grocery pickup. You can leave extra canned goods and so forth in a plastic bag on your doorstep, and they'll pick it up because they know people have it. So what's your grocery bill? What's your supermarket spending? What's what you spend at the big box stores? Be careful. I'm not asking that you be what we call tight. I'm not trying to turn anybody into a tightwad. We're talking about stewardship. It's a great word. That means you're given charge over certain resources, and you're going to do your best to make certain that the resources are preserved handled, multiplied, treated properly. It's amazing, Nancy. We have all kinds of people who are concerned about the environment and our natural resources and so forth. And yet they're the very ones who are buying all the stuff in plastic and then throwing away the plastic bottles, water bottles, and they're going into the landfill. And the plastic takes 1,000 years to break down. So what I'm saying is, if you're out here talking about wanting to conserve nature and the environment and so forth, do your part. Start out by teaching yourself, being teachable, how to save. How to save. By the way, bottled water is not a good investment because the experts will tell you that bottled water is no better than what's coming out of the tap in most homes. In fact, not as good. But we have all kinds of people walking around with bottles of water. Why don't you get a permanent container, fill it at your kitchen sink, and carry it with you during the day? It's cheaper than buying bottled water. So there's all kinds of ways you can save, and you really won't be depriving yourself. Now, we've talked about that a lot in past programs, like smokers. There are ways to stop smoking. Many people have stopped smoking. There are ways. If you want to know some of the ways, you can reach me through the Acts Media Group website, and I'll be glad to share with you what I know about stopping smoking. There are those who can stop vaping. You don't have to buy those expensive things and vape. You don't have to go through the drive-through of an expensive coffee joint and spend a lot of money on coffee. Why don't you make coffee at home, put it in a thermos and take it with you if you have to have coffee? There are people who allow themselves to get addicted to tobacco. They get addicted to alcohol. They get addicted to coffee. They get addicted to sugar. So addiction, if you work on your addictions, you'll become healthier and you'll save money. Okay. What about investing? I was taught how to invest. I'm not talking necessarily about the stock market. I'm not talking necessarily about buying annuities. I'm not talking about your 401k. All of those are great and fine and so forth. But you can invest in yourself by being very careful about your purchases. Personal example. I've been tempted for several years to buy a new riding lawnmower. I like riding lawnmowers. I really do. I like all lawnmowers, but I have a bad knee that keeps me from pushing one. So a rider. My rider is an old one. My son calls it the tank. He says it's like riding a tank. And I'd been tempted to buy a brand new riding lawnmower. But the old tank was old when it was given to me. In fact, I inherited it from Nancy's aunt.
Oh boy, that was before God made dirt.
That I guess it's been 15 years ago that I inherited that thing, and it was old then, and it still starts, it still runs, it still cuts grass. So why would I invest in a riding lawnmower? That's not a good investment. Now, on the other hand, now this is a little bit extreme for you. If you have bone on bone in your right knee like I have, and it's difficult, to say the least, to walk behind a walking lawnmower, even if it is self-propelled, which would be the better investment?
Have your wife mow the yard.
Do what?
Have your wife mow the yard. Have your wife.
Oh, have your wife. Well, okay. But put that to one side. Which would be the better investment? To have a total knee replacement so that you can walk behind a push mower, or buy a riding lawnmower? Well, in that case, buy the riding lawnmower, because they can be replaced. Once you replace a knee, then it's replacement upon replacement upon replacement. They don't work for everybody. I chose not to have total knee replacement. And I choose to have a riding lawnmower, and I choose to use the old one. So every time I get on that old snapper, it's like I'm investing back into us, because sometimes the investment is what you don't spend.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why knowing how to save and how to invest go together. Now, there are other ways to invest. And by the way, I have an appointment with another financial planner. I've been picking their brains so that I can advise others who want to consult with me about finances. And I'm going to learn more next Monday. I have a meeting. I'll learn more about annuities. I'll learn more about the stock market. We'll learn more about certain companies like TD Ameritrade, et cetera. We'll learn more about 401ks, 403bs. We'll learn more about mutual funds, all of these things that have to do with investment in today's money marketplace, and so that I can help guide others and teach them at least where to go for some answers. So that has to do with investment. Now, what about spending? Well, we talked about that somewhat. I have told many times, many people, that I became a wonderful shopper, a great shopper, and a lousy spender, because I see a lot of things. I think, that'd be nice. Then I think, I can live without it. I don't need it. I really, for the most part, only spend money on something that I need. Now, I'm not a tightwad. I have a friend who is a real tightwad. He'd be a prime example of somebody that will squeeze a nickel until there's nothing left to squeeze. But I'm not that way. I'm a generous person, but there are things I don't need. I can't think of anything that I need to go to the store and buy today that I need. Now, I can walk through a mall and window shop and enjoy window shopping and a little bit of exercise for the old bum right knee, but I just don't have to have everything in sight. So if you will be careful, you will learn how to spend. Not just to not spend, but when you do spend it on something that will last. Some things are classic. There are people right now, Nancy, buying clothes that will go out of style. And when they're out of style and they're very style conscious, then they have to have a new wardrobe. I think about these people who walk around with the jeans that have been purposely cut and have holes in them and everything. Those will go out of style someday. And they spent lots of money on holey jeans, on ripped up jeans, faded jeans. They'll go out of style. There are people who are spending a lot of money on certain styles of sneakers. We have some televangelists who are like they're in a contest with each other who can wear the flashiest sneakers. Some of them are buying sneakers. They're spending over $1,000 for a pair of shoes. Those are going to go out of style. Certain things are classic. They just don't change. Try to learn how to spend on that which is going to be good today, tomorrow, and next week. Nancy, you have a winter coat that is still classic and beautiful, and it's on the. You could wear it with formal wear. And how old is it?
Let me think. 60 years old.
60 years old. It was purchased for her, obviously, by her parents. That was what you call wise spending, because that coat looks today just like it did the day that she walked out of the store with it. It was quality material, quality merchandise. The style is classic. So after 60 years, that coat is still in her closet, and it is still classy and something that you could wear to anyone's highfalutin party, right?
That's right.
So now that's how to spend. Nancy's parents knew how to spend.
Mm-hmm.
Her dad never, ever, ever had a car payment.
Mm-mm.
Never. and he drove new cars. Every 2 years, he'd just drive in to the dealership, hand them a book that he kept on the floor that had in it every oil change, every tire change, everything, the whole history of the car. Hand it to him, say, here's the record on this car, and I want that one over there. And he'd drive out with another new car. He never had a house payment.
Mm-mm.
He paid for them and then lived in them. See, that way he was reinvesting. If you have a house payment, stop and think, what would your bank account look like if you didn't have a house payment coming out of it every month? We know that feeling because, quite frankly, I waited a long time. Don't wait as long as I did. I waited a long time, but I paid for our home this past March. This is May of 2021. March of 2021 is when I could have paid for it 5 years earlier, but because of interest rates and one thing and another, I just kind of hung in there. But I decided I could handle that money better if it's not coming out of our checking account every month. So we are investing and reinvesting in ourselves by not having a mortgage payment. Folks, there's all kinds of things you can do. It gets very exciting. One of the financial planners that I visited with, he was one that was advising me not to pay for the house. And then after we did, he got inspired, and he and his wife now are working diligently at paying for their house. They want to get out from under their mortgage. I talked to a man yesterday. You were there, and he said, "Well, the house next door is for sale." I said, "I don't want it. Ours is paid for." He said, "Our plan is ours will be paid for next year." We're inspiring people to sleep in paid-for houses. Some people say that's impossible. You want to know why it's possible, how it's possible? Contact me through axmediagroup.com. I dare you to contact me through Axe Media Group's website. There's a way they'll get an email to me, and then I'll connect with you, and I will teach you some things that in the vernacular of today's world will blow your mind. Think about it, to be totally debt-free. Now, I'm going to come back to spending on another program, but right now I want to move to the final step, which was how to get. This is not as easily explained, but I'll tell you this. If your mind is always, in regard to your finances, playing catch-up, because you run out of money before you run out of month, you don't have room in your mind to learn how to get, to be ahead of the game. You're only trying to get to catch up. Now, there is a difference. We got to get you to the point where you're not playing catch up. If you're just getting to catch up, then you're not going to be open to getting on the positive side. And you're bright people listening to me, so I know you're not confused by this. You understand what I'm saying. So to learn how to get means you, first of all, you had to learn how to save, how to invest, even the smallest amount. And then you had to learn how to spend so you'd have more to invest. And then when you've got all these issues settled where you have more of a comfort level, then you're open to new ideas of how to get. I've been telling people on a limited basis, because this just came to me a couple of weeks ago, and I haven't had time to tell a lot of people. But if you have, let's think about one idea for one thing can create $1 million. Do you have room in your head for an idea? Are you struggling to survive and therefore there's no room for inspiration? Speak up, Nancy.
Sometimes you may not realize it, but you feel like you're so bogged down that there is no good idea. There is no way to turn because you're right there in that hole. And I'm sorry, I really don't, I understand how that feels, but that's not right. You're not whoa, you're not looking at the right place, which is up or around, meaning Jesus, because he's right there with you. And all the time, every day, he gives me ideas, little insignificant things that people would laugh at me. I don't care because I know where they came from. So there's a positive right there. Nobody is alone, and he's always waiting for you to talk to him and ask.
Well, that's right. And remember, folks, as I said right up front in this broadcast, Nancy and I come at things from a perspective of followers of Jesus.
That's right.
That's who we follow. Now, the principles are so classic, they will apply to you if you're a Buddhist. They'll apply to you if you're a rank humanist, a secular humanist. They'll apply to you if you're an atheist.
Yes.
These principles still work.
Yes.
You have to know how to save. You have to know how to invest. You have to know how to spend. You have to know how to get. And you will not know how to get if your mind is busy trying to survive.
That's right.
So you have to open up your mind by getting these other things done. Don't start with getting. There are some people who do that, and it seems like it works, but it only works for a while. For true prosperity has longevity built into it. Now, I want to tell you, please do not be too overeager about opportunities to get. You have to test the spirits. You have to really test the ideas, test the source, test these things, because every 3 seconds, someone is a victim of cybercrime. That means these things here or your computer, you can be victimized. Now, you retired people who need to get more to add into your retirement income, you are particularly susceptible to phony phone calls. Learn how to just press the off button. Don't even answer. Because if you answer more than once, if you say hello, 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 they have a chance then to tab that number, and you're just going to get more of those phony phone calls. You can nip it in the bud, as Barney Fife would say on the old Andy Griffith show. Nip it in the bud. Just don't answer. Just press the off button and be done with it. Likewise, those of you who are retired and you're on your computer and you see, let's say you're on a social media platform and you see these offers coming across, sound so tempting. If you follow through, I've followed through on some of them, clicking continue until finally they want my information. And I know what they're going to do. They're going to start barraging me with phone calls immediately about a cheaper mortgage, which I don't want because I don't have one. I don't want another one ever. Or some program that's medically oriented. If it sounds too good to be true, it really is, folks. Senior citizens, please do not become a victim of phone calls or of computerized messages. Just don't do it. Also, don't become a victim of your wife's brother-in-law by her third marriage or whatever. Some guy who's supposed to be your friend or some woman. There are scam artists out there galore. They're going to tell you how to make more money. All it takes is a little money to start, and it's just going to come rolling in. Don't believe it. Most money comes because of being a diligent worker, not just a receiver, not a loafer. Read the book of Proverbs. It'll tell you a whole lot, that Old Testament book of Proverbs, about true riches and working and so forth. So don't be scammed as you look for ways to get. Now, when you eliminate all the scams, what are some of the ways that you can get? Well, as senior citizens, if you're retired, sometimes you can get simply by doing away with some things that you didn't need. We've already established that. But there are also ways that you can become a consultant. You've had experiences. There are genuine companies, not one of these scams, but genuine companies that will pay for your expertise. There are some of you who have some writing skills. You can write. And there are programs, genuine programs, where you can get paid for writing essays and brief articles. You don't get paid a lot, but you get paid something. Listen, this isn't a new concept. It goes way back to when weekly newspapers in small towns were found all across the nation, for the most part, back when I was really young. And they would have a column maybe entitled Your Neighbors or something. But there would be a paragraph, just a very short paragraph of neighborhood news, and so and so had a birthday party and was attended by 20 people. A good time was had by all. Usually, women were writing those columns, and they got paid so much an inch for what they wrote. So this is not a new idea, being paid for writing something. Now, even though newspapers, especially small town weeklies, just about gone, there are other bona fide programs where you can get paid for writing if you contact me through the axmediagroup.com website. That's www.axmedia, M-E-D-I-A, group, Group.com. They'll see that I get an email, and I'll be able to connect with you, and I will tell you the sources. Now, have I used them? No, because I haven't needed to. I'm busy with other ways of generating income. However, if you haven't found another way and you're interested in writing for profit, I can tell you reliable places to write where you can get paid. Likewise, about consulting. You spent 40 years on a job, you know something. Now, that's just the tip of the iceberg about how to get. There's all kinds of ways. I have some publications that tell you where to look for money, if that's what your interest is, to get more. And I don't blame you if you want to get more. Even if you're a very wealthy person, good stewardship says you should be looking to get more. What will you do with the excess? Well, after you've taken care of yourself and your wife and whatever, and your children and grandchildren, whatever is, high on your list, be careful about the nonprofits that you support. Be very careful. There are nonprofits all over the place, all kinds of tax-exempt places wanting your dollars and offering you a tax-deductible receipt in return or a piece of merchandise in return. Be careful. If you want to continue to get, then you're charged with stewardship. What are you going to do with the excess? As a clergyman, and I started preaching when I was 19 years old. June the 5th, I'll be 86, so I've been at this a while. I can tell you, and I say this with no jealousy or envy in me whatsoever, about televangelism. Televangelism is bringing in billions, multiple billions of dollars a year that's tax exempt. Where does it come from? Most of it comes from retired people, really. Statistics show that, retired people. And televangelists are the ones wearing the $1,000 sneakers, many of them. They're having private jets. They have multiple very expensive homes, really mansions. They fly across the country from Georgia to California to on a weekly basis to hold services on both coasts. One flies from Georgia to New York every weekend. Another flies from our area to Florida and back all the time because they've established more than one outlet. And these people are in the business of getting your dollars, your extra dollars that you got by applying good principles to the fourth step, which is to get. So when you get more and you have some excess, let me give you a good recommendation about where there is a nonprofit that you can be supportive of that operates on a very small budget. It's called Axe Media Group. It is a division of Acts Ministry Incorporated, actsministryinc.com or actsmediagroup.com, and you'll find a place where you can donate. So you say, well, Paul, you started out here telling us all this good stuff and you end up asking for money. No, I'm just suggesting. Many people are giving, and they're giving in the wrong places. If you're giving in the wrong place, then my message to you is really not relevant, because to be the people I want to see get are people who are good stewards. And anyway, you want to hear more about this, you can get a hold of me through actsmediagroup.com. Nancy, I feel like we've given folks some really good information today. And Matthew Pearson.
That's Matthew Dillon Pearson.
Matthew Dillon Pearson, yeah. Marshall Dillon.
Yes.
He's back at the controls, and he's about ready to shut us off. Just as
we can get off before he does that.
Just like Matt Dillon in Gunsmoke always wins in that gunfight at the start of that show. Mm-hmm. But did you notice, Matt Dillon is slower on the draw than the other guy? You watch it. He slaps leather slower, but he wins because he shoots straighter.
Right.
So, Matt, you may be slow on the draw, but you're a straight shooter.
That's bad.
Okay, now we've had a good time. Good time was had by all. See you on the bucket list next Monday, 10 o'clock Central Daylight Time. Until then, Paul and Nancy Collins saying simply, stay blessed.